Thank you. And now let me introduce our speaker. Danielle Brown originally joined Toastmasters in the spring of 2017, wasting no time in devoting her unique skills to foster an excellence and develop exceptional leaders. She completed her first 2 paths in the first 2 years Pathway was launched. Well done. And is a few sheets of paperwork away from earning her DTM. Danielle is an account manager and head of the strategic partnership and editorial at BookPal, a book retailer that specializes in group sales. Plus, she's writing her very own novel, co-hosts Currently Obsessed podcast, and is currently the district director, with the district director, Christine Brady, and spends her free time within the pages of imaginary worlds. I can't imagine you have very much free time. However, at this point in time, let us all please welcome and give a hand of applause or whatever we're doing right now for Danielle Brown.
Thank you so much, Paul. You're so kind. Free time is a little hard to come by. Also, I think the bio is only slightly outdated because I do have my DTM now. I got those few sheets of paperwork in, so very proud to have earned that.
I was given bogus paperwork.
Yeah, that's probably my fault. You know,
no worries. But
DTM
thank you for correcting
doesn't mean we email well. So. All right, thank you everyone for being here. If you are here for learning about Pathways Basecamp Manager and how to use that portal, you're in the right place. If not, and you just want to hear me talk for a while, by all means stay. But if you're looking for another workshop, you can peace out and go find that one. But I'm so happy to have all of you. If you want to, since most of us have our videos off, if you wouldn't mind just posting in the chat for me, what brought you to the Basecamp Manager training session? Was it because you're serving as a vice president of education? Is it because you're serving as a president? Is it because you're curious? If you could just please put a brief description of what brought you to this session, just so that I know for context of what areas we really want to focus on during the presentation.
And that's in the chat.
Yes, please. Okay. Please post in the chat, any and all of you. So I'll wait a couple minutes for those to come in. But today I'll be sharing my screen, and I have borrowed, thank you to Julie, I have borrowed her login so that I can just be actively in Basecamp Manager for you, and I'll share my screen so you can just see what the portal looks like. I would encourage you, if you already have access to the Basecamp Manager portal, to log in yourself. And so if you haven't done that already, if you want to open another tab or another window for toastmasters.org, then I'll direct you how to get there and get to Basecamp Manager, and you can follow along that way. That way you can see what the reports and—
He's all right now.
Oh, yeah? Oh, Paul, were you saying something?
I thought I had muted.
Oh, okay. Disregard that. Yeah, so if you want to follow along, you'll see all of your club's information in the reports and the navigation, so it'll be a little easier for you to follow along. But if you don't have access yet, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can just go ahead and follow my screen share while I am sharing the screen. So it looks like we have a few responses in the chat. Thank you guys so much for doing that. I see a lot of Vice President of Education. This is the perfect session for you to do if you haven't already done the Vice President of Education training. They probably would have mentioned Basecamp Manager, but not gone in full detail. Let's see, we have a newbie here. So glad that you could join, and just learning more about Pathways. Great. Fardad, for learning more about Pathways, are you, if you wouldn't mind just answering in the chat as well, are you a club officer or are you just a member of your club? I just want to make sure we're hitting on the right notes for you with Pathways. Today's session is all about the Basecamp Manager. Okay, VP of membership. So I don't know, Julie, or correct me if I'm wrong, is Basecamp Manager still available for all officers, or is it restricted to the 3?
you can log in as yourself to Basecamp, but you don't have the Basecamp manager aspect of it. So you don't have the reporting, but every member logs into Basecamp as themselves.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Julie. So that's what I thought. So Fardad, as VP of membership, you might not have access to what we're going to go over today, which is the Basecamp manager, essentially the back end of that portal. But what I'd like to do is maybe try to save some time for the end of the session today to do a little overview or Q&A about pathways in general. So if you would like to stay, just the first part of the workshop might not be as relevant to you. And then towards the end, just in general, if anyone has other questions about pathways, I think we should have some extra time so we can do that towards the end. All right, so with that, I'll go ahead and share my screen. So again, if you didn't already, please open a new tab or a new window where you can log into toastmasters.org. So you'll see here, hopefully you'll see my screen shared now. And up here it says, welcome Julie, because I'm logged in with Julie's login. So go ahead and take care of that. And then once you're logged in, just a quick tutorial on how to navigate to Basecamp Manager. In the navigation menu for pathways, there isn't a specific Basecamp Manager button the way you see go to Basecamp and the start page, but you'll actually click go to Basecamp and then it will give you the option. So like Julie was just saying, everyone can log into Basecamp itself. That's what this go to Basecamp button is. But for presidents, secretaries, and vice presidents of education, you'll have this second button that says login as Basecamp manager. And that means you're logging into Basecamp, but on the back end, that back side of the portal where you can see reports, transcripts, etc. And that's what we're going over today. So once you're logged in and you click go to Basecamp, we'll do login as Basecamp manager. And hopefully by now you're a little bit familiar with pathways, but in case you're less familiar, I'll kind of do my little spiel about how I view pathways. To me, pathways is like an online course. It's an online curriculum that's at your own pace for our members to work through. And Basecamp is essentially just the portal where that curriculum is hosted. So if you're ever confused about the wording and the different jargon that we have for these things, just treat Basecamp like the actual platform where Pathways is hosted. So that's why when you log in as a Basecamp manager, you're still in the same portal, you're just in a different view, so you can see the reports and other things of your club itself. So when you first log in, you should have this main home screen, and there is a link for the Basecamp Manager Overview tutorial. If you have questions after this, or if days from now you've forgotten everything I said in this presentation and you're so confused the first time you log into Basecamp Manager again, by all means, go to this tutorial and see if it can help answer your questions. They've done a great job at building out these tutorials and developing and improving their guides for users. And then these three things are your main panels. They're your main navigation links, I guess, from the homepage. We have pending requests, member progress, and then manager tutorials. So those manager tutorials, again, if you are just completely lost days and weeks from now after this presentation, you can go here and try to get some more help from Toastmasters. And then these other two are the main reasons that you'll log into Basecamp Manager going forward. Especially as a vice president of education, one of your main goals is to keep your club members in check with the goals that they shared with you or that they shared with their mentors. And also just tracking their progress in the Pathways program to make sure they have any questions answered, to make sure they're moving along at the pace that they had hoped to. And the member progress allows you to just check in and confirm that people are moving forward at the pace that they want to. And then pending requests is more like an administrative task that is super important, and we'll go over that first, because it's one of the crucial things that people will ask you about or be confused about moving forward. So if you want to be an expert in anything in Basecamp Manager, it should be the pending request. So that's what I want you to take away from this the most. So really quickly, if you wouldn't mind in the chat, just let me know how far you've gone through in Pathways. That will help me know how far you've moved along in your own curriculum. So how familiar you are with the levels, the overall platform of going through Basecamp. Just let me know about how far along you are in Pathways yourself as a member. And go ahead and post that in the chat anytime. Okay, Randy completed level 3, amazing. Steven, looks like you're on level 5 or you completed already?
Completed it.
Amazing, okay. Completed level 3, level 2. Okay, so it looks like most of you have at least gone through a couple of levels. So if you remember while you were working through your own Pathways curriculum, one of the things that you had to do at the end of each level was you had to do that mark complete or request complete or whatever the button is on that last project. And it wasn't really a project at all. It was just a task where you had to click the button and then like magic, you would get to move on. But behind the scenes, this pending requests field for Basecamp Manager is essentially that magic that would allow members to move forward and give them that check mark for that level. So when a member completes a level and submits that very last step of mark complete, then you would get a notification email if you're the secretary, president, or vice president of education saying, you know, level completion request received or something like that. And they would include the club member name and probably a link to Basecamp. And you would come in here at Basecamp Manager and just go straight to pending requests. And here we have nothing because Julie's club is on top of it. But what you would see if a member had submitted that mark complete task is you would see here in the report requested by, you would have the club member name, and then it would list which path and level they're requesting. And that's at this point, you would want to double check with that member just to make sure, if you don't know offhand, that they've completed everything for that level. Sometimes when we're in Pathways and we're clicking buttons, we can click things on accident and it happens. So whenever you look at these requests, it's always good to just make sure, you know, have they really done those first 5 speeches? Are we good to go? And you can always reach out to the member to confirm the dates as well and just make sure everything's a go. But if it is, then usually down here on the options, you'd have the yes or no, or it's a green check mark or a red X or something like that, that essentially says, are you approving this completion request or are you declining it? And hopefully everything is a go and you can just mark approve and they'll receive an email back saying that the completion request was approved and received. So that, like I said, is one of the most important things that I want you to take away from being a Basecamp manager, because it's these pending requests that sometimes can get lost in the shuffle. So I want to make sure, especially since most of you are vice presidents of education, it would be great to have a regular check-in with these if you're not receiving the email notifications, or make your club members aware that if they have submitted a level completion request, that they can let you know directly, email you, text you, whatever the best form of communication is. And that way you can come log in and make sure everything is approved and good to go. Okay, before we move on, if you have any questions just about these pending requests, specifically how to approve them and what they're for, if you want to just post in the chat any question that you have. And if you don't have any questions, maybe just say like, no questions, just as confirmation. Okay, I got one, I'm good. If anybody does have questions that they post in here, we will come back to this. No questions, thank you. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's go back to our home screen. Yvonne, yes, you click on the check mark. All right, if there are any other questions that come in, we'll make sure to address them later. So back on our home screen, the other thing is our member progress. There are a couple of different ways that you can look at member progress. One of the ways that I like is looking at individual transcripts. So for instance, if you did want to go confirm that someone had moved through a specific level when they submit that completion request, or if you just know that John really wanted to get through level 4 by X date and it's getting close. Let's see how far along he is. Let's see how far he moved through the curriculum. You can actually go to just an individual member's transcript. So over in the search button, you just start typing a club member's name and then you would be able to go to their transcript specifically. So for instance, let's just search Julie. I'm assuming you can look at your own. There you go. So once you search someone's name, you'd be able to just go to that person's profile. And on paths and learning, that's where you're going to see the actual transcript. It's essentially looking at their curriculum, the way they look at it in pathways, but you're just an observer. They're the ones actually scrolling through everything, checking the boxes, etc. But this should look really familiar as far as how it's laid out based on how Pathways is laid out for you as a member. And you can go right in here. Let's say Julie had submitted a level completion request for her innovative planning path. We could go in here and look directly at how far along she had gotten. Oops. Oh, that's cute. Oh, this training is unavailable. It could just be that I'm clicking the wrong one for Julie, but hopefully
what it is TI updated the level 1, and so because my path is already in progress, it won't show the new one. I should buy a new path so we can see it. But
you have like 5 paths here, so I'm not holding it against you. Here, what's one that you went through, Julie?
I've done innovative planning pretty far.
That's the one I clicked on.
If you click the open curriculum, it will show you now.
Okay. There we go. Okay, this was a screen I wanted to get to. So like I said, if we had that level completion request from Julie, let's say, because she's sneaking in some projects over here in level 4, if she had a level 4 completion request come in, you might want to check in here and be like, Julie, you didn't do level 2 and level 3, come on. Let's do things in order. Let's build up here. No, I'm just giving you a hard time. But this is what it should look like when you are looking at an individual member's transcript per path. So if you ever want to see a member's progress specifically, this is how you do that. Now I'll go back to the homepage and click on the member progress panel for our navigation, because these show you the reports and it's more of a bird's eye view of your club member progress. It's loading. Any day now.
I always have a hard time with that button too. Doesn't work very fast.
I mean, it is trying to load a decent amount of data in those reports, which can sometimes be difficult. I will say that is why I really like the individual member transcripts, because sometimes it's a lot easier to go person by person than looking at those reports. Aha, here we go. Okay. One thing that I'll say here, I'm not a huge fan of the bird's eye view, but if you like looking at it this way instead of the individual members, by all means do so and use these to your advantage. But what might scare you is the fact that there's just no records found, as if there's no information whatsoever. This probably isn't really the case, and you would just need to, sorry, gotta move my windows. You would just need to hit options over here on the right and then refresh. And that makes sure it loads the data that is currently up to date to right this second. I'm not going to click it only because that also sometimes takes a long time to load and can slow everything down. But I just want to bring this to your attention. If you would rather look at some of these reports and explore in here, make sure you're always hitting options and then refresh. And I believe, yeah, you can do it for each individual grid as well. So if you don't want to do it for the whole page because it is taking so long, if you just want to go to one in particular, you can click the little down arrow on the top right and then click refresh. Are there any questions on looking at member progress, looking at these reports of member progress, anything like that? And if no questions, again, if you wouldn't mind just posting in the chat that you don't have any questions.
There's a group one though, isn't there? Where it shows the whole group? Or is that
That's
like,
what these reports will be, these are the bird's eye view reports. So it's showing you the whole club, not just a one member.
Can you show again how to check individual progress?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do someone different. So you'll just search for their name up in that top right search bar. Oh.
So the caveat is that member has to, I'm a part of multiple clubs, and I know Christine is as well. So if the person has not assigned that club to be their home club, they actually won't show for you. So the reports can look a little funky if you have people that are members of a lot of clubs, which I know Christine is.
Okay, Julie, what's a good person to look up?
That's a good question, because I think everybody in this club is actually part of multiple clubs.
Yeah.
Maybe type my name in and see, it should pop up, I would think.
Yeah.
I'm down to
Okay.
5 clubs, so I'm a slacker.
Down to 5.
Yeah.
I'm only in one club.
Get those double digits, Paul. Come on.
You know, overachiever.
All right. Okay. So again, we'll use Julie as the example. So you'll just type in her name and in the search bar, and then here we have Julie. So you'd first click on her name to get to her profile specifically. And here is just some general information about, when she joined. So up at the top here next to Basecamp profile and feedback, you'll click on paths and learning. And that will take you to her actual curriculum. And then depending on what path you want to look at, like Julie has these 5 different paths that she has open, you'll have to open each one individually depending on what you want to look at, and just click on the open curriculum button, and you'll see that transcript so far of what she's completed. And also, just like in Pathways when you're a member, you can still navigate between levels here. So if we did want to go see what she was up to in level 4, you could go straight to level 4 and look and see if she had done one elective project. See if you want to drill down even further than that level view, you can go level by level.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions on checking member progress, just navigating in this portal in general? Anyone have any specific questions? Looking good. Oh, I know how to approve. Yes, Randy, thank you. That is the next thing that I would like to show, just in case either you haven't done your Vice President of Education training yet, or if you've already forgotten or are just confused, I am happy to go over that next step to the education awards. So in Basecamp Manager, we specifically talked about how to approve those level completion requests. And that's strictly within Pathways. That's within the portal of Basecamp. There's something else that you have to do, especially as Vice President of Education, to make sure that Toastmasters International actually awards the member with the credit they earned for completing different levels in Pathways. So those are called the Education Awards, and I'll show you how to do that in Club Central because it's done in a different section. But normally when you do approve the completion request, you should do this around the same time. Once you approve it in Basecamp, you can just jump right over to Club Central and submit the education award there. So we'll go ahead and show that. Sorry, I have things blocking my view here. All right, so you will go straight to toastmasters.org and let me know just by like a yes or no in the chat if you have already seen this and know what to do in Club Central, or if this is brand new to you. So yes, you've seen it already, you know how to do it, or no, I have no idea what you're talking about with educational awards. Just let me know where we're at. Okay, while you guys are posting about that, here we are at regulartoastmasters.org. Great, it's good to know a lot of you have seen it, so this will be a refresher for you, and then at least Charles and anyone else, this is a good thing to make note of. So we'll go here to Leadership Central, and under the Leadership Central navigation, the first link is Club Central. And this is a really good hub for any officer, but especially the Vice President of Education to just take a look at how the club is doing and manage these education awards. It is loading, I promise. All right, there we go. So if you are in multiple clubs, or at least are an officer in multiple clubs, you would select which club here. We were previously in the pastime pursuits for Basecamp managers, so I'm just gonna click that one to make things consistent. So normally if you are just in one club and you go to Club Central, it'll look just like this and you won't have that club selection view first. And here you can go to the club roster and see that, and you can take a look at all kinds of nice reports and interesting information about the club. But what we want is this Submit Education Awards. So again, just a clarification on the wording here, we have the level completion requests, which are specific to Pathways and the actual portal of Basecamp that Pathways is in, and approving those level completion requests. This is for Toastmasters to actually award the members with the credit for completing those levels and making those milestones in their education program. So here we go to Submit Education Awards, and you'll first select which member you're submitting for. So for this, we'll just click Christine, and then which program. So you would say which path or level, which path and level you're giving them that award for. So for instance, if Christine had just submitted a level completion request for Motivational Strategies Level 4, and you approved it in Basecamp Manager, you would get to come here into Club Central, go to Submit Education Awards, and select Motivational Strategies Level 4. I don't know that this does this for every award, but sometimes it asks if the member would like a letter of recognition sent to their employer. Make sure that you ask the member this ahead of time. That way you can either say yes or no, and then give the contact information if yes. And then once you hit Review Award, you can submit everything and send it through. And usually it's pretty immediate that it can show up in the Toastmaster system, but sometimes it can take a little more time depending on the actual award that they're being given.
So I will say you get the confirmation usually pretty quick, but there can be a delay for it showing up on your Distinguished Club Performance Report, just because TI at the very beginning of the month does go down for month-end processing. So if you don't see it right away, check on your performance report to see the last updated date, and that would let you know.
All right, any questions on submitting the education awards in Club Central? And especially Charles or anyone who hasn't seen this before, I just want to make sure that this is clear and you know when you would do it and how to do it. We have a question of what are examples of awards. This is an example of the motivational strategies. That's one of the paths and pathways, and then this would be a level 4 award. So technically each level that is completed for each path receives an award as long as you submit it appropriately with Toastmasters.org.
Not path awards. Okay.
I find that, hi, this is Norm Stein. I find
hey,
that a
Norm.
lot of people in our club ask, how do we know that the complete path is being given credit to that person so they can move on to another path?
Yeah, so that would just be a level 5 award for that specific path. Once
Well,
you
that-
get that,
Excuse me for interrupting you, but you really hit the point. People want to know if they have finished level 5, is that the same thing as getting credit for completion of a path?
yes, it is. And the reason that I say that is because, again, in your role as Vice President of Education, we have that example of Julie, right, who had done an elective in level 4. And if she submitted a level 4 completion request right now and you didn't check anything, you could just approve it and no one would bat an eye. However, you want to make sure that in order to give each level's completion, that they've truly completed everything up until that point. Because once you do give that level 5 completion request approval or the level 5 education award in Toastmasters.org, that does consider it the award for the entire path completion.
Okay.
If you're someone like me that has
Where
worked
do you
out of
actually see
order, say I have completed all the items for level 4 and I requested approval in it, but really I had only completed, maybe level 1. When my club officer goes to submit it in Club Central, they actually can't credit me with my level yet. So it gets really confusing. So I do suggest that when you are requesting, even though you can work on them out of order, because I work on whatever I feel like for the day sometimes, I do suggest that you request the level completions in order to make your club officer's life easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can that be shown to them? Can we bring up something, we could print it out and show people that, yes, it is completed? How does that look in Club Central when it's actually completed?
That's a good question. I don't know of a way that you could print it out. I know that the member gets an email from Toastmasters.org, which I believe includes a certificate you can print. But outside of that, I don't know if the officers have access to something like that. Julie,
I
do you
believe
know?
the officer that submits the award will get the confirmation as well that it's been submitted. And then a couple minutes later, you usually get another one that says it's approved. But in terms of, you would just have to log into Club Central to, when you get the notification from Basecamp Manager, you would just have to log into Club Central to make sure that those actually match.
Okay.
The other problem that sometimes people have is if one club officer gets it and they're part of multiple clubs, then one submits it and then another one tries to go submit it. And it's like, oh shoot, like the other club already got it. So you just have to, if you're part of multiple clubs, you just have to be in really strong communication with your VPEs, letting them know, hey, this is ready for approval.
Yeah, and for you as the Vice President of Education, because so many of you are, just having that open channel of communication with your members, making sure that you're checking in with them when they do submit those requests and are asking you about the awards. Those are the kinds of nuances to just be aware of. But if it's somebody simple who has only started one path, is going in order, is only a member of one club, everything should be really straightforward. It's only when we have those other variables at play.
You know, the Julian Pauls of the world that like to make our club officers' life very difficult.
Yeah.
Danielle, I have a question.
Yeah.
You don't have to do things in order, but it has to be within the level that you're working, right? You can't, if you're working in level 3, you can't be doing level 4 stuff because you haven't been approved in that level and it doesn't give you the assignments.
Toastmasters International actually has opened it up so that you can see your entire path and you can work on anything within any path you have purchased. So I personally will be like, you know what, I have this idea for a speech and it fits this one. So I work on it, probably not the best way. I probably should go in order, but I get tight on time and end up.
Is that different from what it used to be?
Correct. When
Yes, it is
Pathways
different. They
first
made it-
launched, you had to do it in order, but now
Oh,
you just
okay.
view your entire path.
And I will point out that I would say working out of order isn't necessarily encouraged. I wouldn't like shame Julie for doing it, because by all means. But as the Vice President of Education, as you are guiding members, try to point out the fact that those levels are available to them and accessible so that they can do proper planning. That was one of the key weak links, I think, before, when it was really locked down and you could only look at current levels, is you weren't able to properly plan ahead for the later projects that were going to take a lot more planning, time, and energy. And for people who want to just make sure they're constantly moving forward with that knowledge in mind, that's a really good way to use it and use that accessibility. But they don't always have to be completely jumping around and doing a level 5 project while they're in the middle of level 2 or something else.
Danielle,
Yes.
the other thing that's actually good about being able to jump around like that is, like you said, we don't encourage it. But for example, if your club's doing a open house and you've been put in charge of it, that can fit a later project that you can mark it down.
Absolutely. Yeah. It helps you see those opportunities. There are some of those elective projects that are things like lead a Q&A or lead a panel discussion. And you're right, when different events and opportunities, like there aren't open houses every single week or every single month for most clubs. So when the opportunities do arise, if you know that's something you're interested in as a member, you can take advantage of that opportunity right away instead of waiting until you've finally gotten to the level 4 electives to look at. So yeah, that planning and forethought is really helpful for members in Pathways. Since we are nearing the end of time, I just want to give like maybe 5 minutes or so to anyone with questions about anything we've covered so far or just about Pathways. So I can go to Pathways as a regular member, or I can stay as a Basecamp manager, just depending on what you guys need. Andrew, you had a question?
Yes, I did. Unfortunately, while you were talking about, I was messing around with Pathways trying to get into it, so I missed the last part of it where you got to see other people in Julie's club. You had a whole, if I remember it right, you had a whole list of people that you were looking at. If I misinterpreted that.
In her login specifically, I don't think we looked at the full list of people, but
Okay.
I will show you just kind of what we went over.
Because
So
I'm stuck in those very unhelpful dashboards.
Okay, so up in the top right search bar, that's where you can just search for a member's name specifically.
Okay.
So what we did was search for Julie as an example. And then once you search any member's name, you can just click that and go to their profile.
Okay.
And then on their profile, there's the Paths and Learning tab that takes you to their actual curriculum, and you can open the curriculum to look at their transcripts.
Is there a way to do that for an entire club, or do you have to go in and individually look at each person's path? And I mean, like, for example, have a menu of everybody, click on their name, and then you'd see the screen you're on.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a specific way that you can just look at the list of people. I know you have to look at each person's transcript individually, and then the progress member reports are what give you more of the bird's eye view of the club.
I think it's view. What happens if you click view team? There, I think that's the button. That's the one I was looking for earlier. I've seen it before.
There you go. I think this is is it everyone, Julie, do you think? Or would this just be the officers?
Everyone that has Pastime Pursuits
as their home club.
As their home club in Basecamp.
Okay, perfect. There you go. And then you
that was a different button before, and it was in a different spot, and that's what I was looking for. But I knew it was there. I just didn't know where.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Any other questions? And thank you, Andrew, for pointing that out, because now this is a new little trick that everyone can remember if they want to look at individual transcripts and just hop back and forth between members. If anyone wants to either go off mute and ask a question, or if you want to post it in the chat. Let's see, someone raised their hand.
I have a comment to make. A resource that's available that I've used when I bumped into problems with pathways and the Basecamp manager is I just call up the helpline, and they're very knowledgeable and very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, if you are ever confused after this presentation, there are the tutorials in the website. And also if you contact anyone at Toastmasters, they're always really happy to help and guide you to what you're looking for. And of course, anyone in the district too. If you reach out to anyone at the district level, I'm sure they will point you in the right direction or give you someone who can help.
Another great resource, if I may, is there actually, if you're on Reddit, there is a thriving Toastmasters community in the r/Toastmasters subreddit, and I'm a very big fan of there because there's a vast amount of knowledge.
That's perfect. That's a great suggestion.
And an even more vast amount of opinion.
Yeah, I'm sure. Awesome.
I'm going to the garage. So
All right, and Julie just posted another great resource, which is the Toastmasters YouTube channel. It also has a lot of tutorials and guides in those videos. So that's a great resource if you want to bookmark it or just remember it for later. But with that, I think I'll give it back to Paul as our room monitor if you want to do any of our conclusion